About a week ago, I went through the long list for the prize that I founded this year, the Republic of Consciousness Prize for Small Presses, but I left out one book because as I was collecting the long list from around my house, that one was somewhere else. So I'm writing that omission, and it's an important book. It's called Quietly Flows the Una by Faruk, Sehic, or Sehic. I can't pronounce it. He's a Bosnian. And essentially it's a memoir come novel. It's an autobiographical novel. It's a novel as memoir. It is one of those pieces of writing that's an interzone between the deeply personal and the sort of, the rendering of expression into a kind of formal piece. He's a Bosnian Muslim, which means that he became a soldier in the Second Balkan War. So after the Croats and Serbs went at it, the Serbs went at the Bosnians, and then the Serbs went at the Kosovans. The Guardian called this an important contribution to war literature. That is the case, but I think it's a much more original novel than that. Faruk is a poet first and a soldier second, and I think often when we think of war poets, we think of the classic World War I poets, and we only really think of their war poems. Whereas this novel actually is a novel of the pastoral. The Una is the river of his home, and the title obviously references Quietly Flows the Don, which is a major piece of First World War literature. And the novel looms, and it is very present at points, but it is not as present as the writer's relationship with nature. Now, in my sort of précis for the long list, I talked about the fact that the river and the river is both a metaphor and not a metaphor in this, in the sense it is a real presence. However, we cannot escape it's so fundamental to his life, and rivers are so metaphorical in what they give to a poet, to a novelist, in terms of how it explain how you can use a river in terms of everything from life, the soul, from the journey, from a sort of abstraction through the land. But that's what's so fascinating about this and it is a very densely written novel or memoir that uses nature and fishing and trees and the river as a way of essentially saying that we are two sorts of people. We are incredibly, especially in that part of the world. And Bosnia, I think, is landlocked. I'm not 100% sure of that, but which would mean that the river plays even more important role. But the children in a rural land, we are going to be so deeply connected to nature. But the moment war steps in, it happens in nature. I mean, if you think of what happened in Sarajevo, you have this beautiful medieval city, but actually all the snipers were in the trees around the city, and so many of the deaths in Sarajevo were from bullets coming from snipers hidden in the trees. So nature, which is a dangerous place anyway, becomes this dangerous place by man being present in it. But the other issue is the nature of man, and in this instance, the protagonist's choice to join the army and what he knows he has to do to survive, which is sort of quintessentially Darwinian, which is clearly rooted in nature rather than some kind of transcendental or categorical imperative. So it's an enormously complex book. It's not very long, it's very dense, but I think it does take us to the heart of something in the Balkan conflict, which I think was a war that, I mean, what was I? I was in my 20s. Was a war that was almost impossible to understand at the time on a macro level. All we had was sort of what became a kind of mythology of Sarajevo, in terms of how the people couldn't leave, and but to understand it on a micro level, this book is a great addition. I would also say that, and I always talk about this, Zone by Matthias Anar is also a brilliant book on the conflict, but that is a pure work of fiction, whereas this is not. So if this at all interests you, I suggest you buy it. Thank you very much.